Okay, good morning. Good to see everybody. As we head to the Christmas Day, hopefully all the shopping is finished. Every time I talk to my bride, I'm almost finished. And then the doorbell, and open the door, and what's there on the porch? Amazon stuff. So I guess almost has a lot of versions, a lot of definitions. We have copies of the picture from the class party. If you did not get one and you would like one, I will have them sit in on the back table. So please take advantage of that. Russ will autograph the back after class if you need that to happen. We won't be singing hymns this morning, but we do have some special music. And while they are coming up to do that, we took a little poll in the 9:30 class. How many of you and your families, you open gifts on Christmas Eve? We're trying to figure out who those people are. So, Christmas Eve. And then we remembered there were several of us that, and we did this, I think, maybe once or twice, and I don't know if Shelley and I have done this with the boys ever. How many of you open up, at least you let everybody open one gift on Christmas Eve and then save the rest? I know I probably have a handful of those. How many of y'all are opening gifts after Christmas Day because of family and not getting everybody together? There's a handful that typically do that. Correct. You probably do the Hanukkah version, and you have 8 crazy days of opening gifts, right? Yes. Okay. The stocking. Very good. I didn't even think about that. That is interesting, though. That's a good plan. Kind of a tease. Okay, let's open up in a word of prayer, and then we'll have some pretty awesome music. Father, thank you for this day, the time to get together, for this Christmas holiday and all that it means to each of us. Your Son, salvation, and we just are thankful for the many blessings that you have given each of us, our families, and once again this church, the things that are taking place with our expansion and just the numbers of visitors that we have visit campus each and every week. Be with us during our class time. Thank you for the preparation that Russ has put into as we continue to study Daniel. And just watch over each of us as we head through this week, and anybody traveling, people traveling here to spend time together and celebrate you. In your name, amen.
So we have 4 pianos in this church, and Logos has half of them. And everyone else is missing out. And by the way, one of those doesn't even count because it's up on stage. So that doesn't really count because it's drowned out by loud music and guitars. So this is a proper piano, and that was a proper worship of our Lord this morning. And so it is a total blessing. We are in Daniel 3. If you were not here last week, Daniel 2 was Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Nebuchadnezzar is laying awake at night, and he's wondering about the things that will come to pass, and God gives him a dream. This dream, he can't figure out what it is, and it says that he's robbed of sleep because he's worried about this dream, and so he brings in the magicians, the sorcerers, the enchanters, and the Chaldeans, the astrologers, and he says, tell me the dream that I have and tell me its interpretation. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. First of all, that's not the way this works. You need to tell us the dream and then we'll give you the interpretation. And he said, you've been lying ever since you came in to my father, and I'll tell you how it's going to be. You're going to tell me the dream and the interpretation, or I'm going to cut you to pieces and I'm going to turn your house into a dunghill. And he knows how to run an organization, right? So in the course of that, the magicians, the Chaldeans say, no man alive can do that except for the gods who aren't part of human flesh. And no truer words have ever been spoken except that it's not gods, it's God. So Daniel is part of the wise men. The king orders Arioch to kill all of the wise men, and they come to Daniel, who hadn't been in attendance, and he said, whoa, what's going on? He sets up an appointment with the king, and he goes back to his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he says, we got to pray. And they turn to God, and they begin praying, and God reveals to Daniel what this statue means. And it is a head of gold, it is arms and chest of silver, it is middle and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and feet and iron of iron mixed with clay. And a stone that's not cut from human hand comes down, hits the statue on the bottom at its feet. It crushes. Everything goes up, and it says it could be blown like the chaff in the wind, completely demolished. And the stone becomes so encompassing that it takes over the full earth. And Daniel reveals the dream, the interpretation. O king, you are the head of gold. A nation will come after you that's not as strong, and that was the Medes and the Persians. That actually takes place in this very book. We'll hear about the Medes and the Persians taking over. Then Alexander the Great's generals split up the Grecian kingdom. Then we have the Roman Empire. Ultimately, the stone is the second coming of God, second coming of Christ, when we will be raptured. We will be raptured prior to this, but that stone will come and it will wipe out all of the nations and the Antichrist, and he will be king forever. His kingdom will reign forever and ever. Now, when Nebuchadnezzar hears this, he falls down at Daniel's feet and he pays homage to Daniel and to the Most High God, and this is really key. He puts Daniel in his court, and Daniel, lobbying on behalf of his friends, he puts his friends into leading the government affairs over the province of Babylon. So these are now high-ranking government officials. So Sean, let's kick off.
King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent together the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Then the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all officials of the provinces gathered together for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And the herald proclaimed aloud, "You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, the trigon, the harp, the bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. Therefore, as soon as all the people heard the sound of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, the trigon, the harp, the bagpipe, and every kind of music, all the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up.
So this follows the dream of the statue. But notice it doesn't say that it's a statue. Let's go to slide 6. This is an image that Jeff retrieved through AI. He was sending me golden statues, and I said, well, this 60 cubits is actually 90 feet, 9 feet wide, and that doesn't sound like it was a statue, and they just used the term statue in the previous chapter, so I don't know what this is. And I said, type this in. Type in obelisk with Nebuchadnezzar's image. And this came. So we have no idea what the Bible said, but AI says that this is the golden image. Now, I will say that something about this image I do believe is self-deification by Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar in 595 BC was the subject of a coup attempt. We know that, first of all, Daniel, and if you remember, Daniel and his 3 compadres were hauled off to Babylon in 605 BC. So several years later, he's older in this story, in 595 BC, there is a coup attempt. It's recorded actually in the Chronicles of Babylon, and that is 49 clay tablets that are written in cuneiform, and it talks about this coup. Nebuchadnezzar had brought, you see the references to nations, peoples. He would commonly bring people in, and so I believe that he was making a statement. He had heard the golden image, and he's making an image that in essence is not part of anything else, as if his kingdom will last forever. And so in addition to self-deification, he is trying to unify his country. He's trying to get people to be loyal to himself. And he has set it up, and if you look at all of the time, it's like 9 times it says Nebuchadnezzar set it up. Nebuchadnezzar set it up. Let's go to the next to the map. So I included this. You can see where Babylon is, kind of right in the middle, and then the plain of Dura is just north and west of Babylon. And the reason that I included this is because nowhere in this story is Daniel mentioned. Daniel's the author, but he doesn't come up in this story at all. This is all about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and about Nebuchadnezzar, and about God. And so he is not here. He's not present. In the last chapter, we find out that Daniel was appointed to serve in the king's court. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are appointed to serve over the affairs of the province of Babylon. So I believe Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are there northwest of Babylon, and Daniel is in the king's court. It doesn't really matter, but that's just it's kind of like the golden obelisk. It's just totally made up, but it's plausible. The other thing is that this is a significant event because they have all of these government officials coming in. They have the prefects, they have the satraps. That would be high provincial officials. Prefects are military chiefs. Governors are captains over sections of the province. Counselors are advisors, treasurers are treasurers, justices like our justices are high judges, and the magistrates, the King James Version says are sheriffs. So just imagine the gunslinger and the star on the chest. But this is a significant event, and so Daniel is saying multiple times we have all of these government officials. And the other thing you pick up in here is that God doesn't want to leave out any musician, because they continue to repeat all of these strange, and it's like they imported people from Scotland because they've got bagpipes, right? So these are wind instruments and stringed instruments, and it's repeated over and over. O peoples, nations, languages, he's clearly trying to unify them. Now, the problem is for the Jews, you're not supposed to fall down before a golden image. Which of the commandments, which of the big 10 does that violate? Oh, y'all know this. 1 and 2. So I'm going to read 2. What is number 1? No other gods before me. Number 2, Exodus 24. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or a likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or is in the water in the earth. You shall not bow down or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. So this is a problem for a God-fearing Jew. These kids are now kids. They're 20 years old. They are kids, right? Do we agree that they're kids? So 20 to 25 years old. By the way, I, on my prayer walk, pray for about 7 people, kids of people in this class who are not necessarily grounded like these people are. And the prayer is that they adopt the faith that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have, and they come to a healthy, saving faith and a healthy, saving relationship. And the fact that it's 6 or 7 is only because about 4 or 5 parents have mentioned that their sons and daughters have drifted or have never found faith. And there's way more than that in here. I know that. We are in an age where people are programmed and they wander off and they're for some reason not grounded. And so I'm going to ask Carolyn to have a recurring prayer request for all of our kids, that they stay grounded spiritually, theologically, and that they adopt the love of God with all of their heart, soul, and mind. That needs to be a prayer that we pray every day for our kids. These guys have it. They know that they cannot bow down before another image, and they're willing to suffer the consequences. And the fiery furnace, by the way, would have been probably a brick kiln. Nebuchadnezzar is the great builder of Babylon, and there was primarily brick structures. And so this would have been a massive brick kiln, I believe. It could have been an iron smolter. But I believe it was a big brick kiln that they put them in. And we have an AI-generated brick kiln later in the lesson that I'm confident is quite accurate. In the end times, there will be instructions to worship someone else other than God, and it's the Antichrist. And so Revelation 13 talks about this. One of its heads, one of the beast, the Antichrist, seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast, and they worshiped the dragon, the devil, for he had given authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. That's the Great Tribulation. That's 3.5 years. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name, his dwelling, that is, those who dwell on the earth, in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints. These are saints that become saints post-rapture, and to conquer them. And authority was given it over every tribe and the people and language and nation, and all who dwell on the earth will worship it. Nebuchadnezzar had forgotten who the Most High God was. In these 8 to 10 years that have occurred, he forgot the proclamation that he made in Daniel 2:47 that we studied last week. In 2:47, chapter 2, verse 47, the king answered and said to Daniel, "Truly your God is the God of gods and Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this mystery." He proclaims it, and then he forgets it. Darla?
Therefore, at the time, certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of a horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in a furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now if you're ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego answered to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand. Deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up.
I find it interesting that these Chaldeans were going to be put to death, and it was because Daniel lobbied the king that they're still alive. The term Jews that is used in here is not a term of endearment. When it's used in the Old Testament, typically the word Jew is a pejorative term. It's a slang word, just like we call certain ethnicities. And so when they are saying these Jews, they are being malicious, as it says they're being malicious, and they're trying to get ahead as corporate politicians. Have you ever heard of the term corporate politician? Those are people that try to get ahead at the expense of others, don't mind stabbing people in the back, and that's what's going on here. We see it every day in the corporations. You find it all the time. So they are trying to get ahead, and they come and they tell at least one lie to the king. They say that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego pay no attention to you. That's not right. These guys know to honor government authority. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. That is true. They evidently have read Romans 12:2 in advance of it being written, and it says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And they are transformed, and they are dedicated. They're making a decision that the king is instructing them to do something that violates at least one of the big 10, and they're not going to do it. And Nebuchadnezzar, in verse 13, in a furious rage, commanded, first of all, the best way to make a really dumb, bad decision is make one out of anger. I know that from experience, and I have several kids that we talk about that display furious behavior driving occasionally, and one of these days I tell them that people actually pack weaponry, and you need to be really wise about that. Someday they'll learn. Nebuchadnezzar is angry, and he brings them in. At least he's not just taking it from the Chaldeans. He's going to interview them himself. And he says, is it true that you're not worshiping the golden image that I have set up? Now I'm going to give you a chance, and if you don't do it, if you decide to bow, good. And if you don't, you will be going into the fiery furnace. And at the end of verse 15, and he says, who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands? This is self-deification. He is saying there is no God greater than me. There is no God that is going to stop my will from being done. And let's go to slide 12. Let's go to the AI generated. Here is the brick kiln that AI says that Daniel was in. We have no idea, but just take it for what it is. But this is an example, back to the scriptures, this is an example of government authority instructing and opposing Christian values. And I know these weren't Christians at the time, but they were following Yahweh, and they were God-fearing, dedicated, devoted people who were the model of faithfulness and a model. When I say a model, they're a model for us. And they made a decision that they were not going to submit to any authority that contradicted God's word. Now, we are required, as part of our Christian faith, to submit to government authority. According to Paul, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist that have been instituted by God. And you've heard this before, I'm going to get crossways with Ken. I believe this so strongly that I believe that the Revolutionary War was not a holy and righteous war. That being said, I'm so thankful that they fought it. But we're not called to rise up and overthrow the government. We're not called to violate government authorities except when it comes in direct contradiction to God's word. We see that in Acts. But the high priest rose up, and all who were with, this is Acts 5:17 through 29. But the high priest rose up, and all who were with him, that is the party of the Sadducees, and filled with jealousy, they arrested the apostles, and they put them in the public prison. But during the night, an angel of the Lord opened the prison doors and brought them out, and said, Go and stand in the temple and speak to the people all the words of this life. And when they heard this, they entered the temple at daybreak, and they began to teach. Now when the high priest came, and those that were with him, they called together the council and all the senate of the people of Israel, and sent to the prison to have them brought. But when the officers came, they did not find them in the prison, so they returned and reported, We found the prison securely locked, and the guards standing at the doors, but when we opened them, we found no one inside. Now the captain of the temple and the chief priest heard these words, and they were greatly perplexed about them, wondering what this would come to. And someone came and told them, Look, the men whom you put in prison are standing in the temple and teaching the people. Then the captain of the officers went and brought them, but not by force, because they were not afraid of being stoned. That's a pretty good model. And when they had been brought to them, they set before them the council. And the high priest questioned them, saying, We strictly charged you not to teach in this name. Yet here you have filled Jerusalem with your teaching, and you intend to bring this man's blood on us. But Peter and the apostles answered, We must obey God rather than men. This is awesome. One of the best examples we have in COVID, which was the craziest time, just the craziest period of my life for sure, when things went totally sideways and there was a disregard for God's word, disregard for law, and many other woeful sins, was California shutting down the gathering to worship. And John MacArthur standing up and saying, We will worship. We don't care what the law is. We will be in worshiping. The government began to put fines and taxes and liens and assessments on him, and he continued to drive that church to meet. And we are absolutely in a period of time where there are all kinds of people who bring up terms like Christian nationalism, which is just a term to oppose values that God has laid out for us, and they absolutely want to change the governance of our churches, and we're going to have to stand up. We just absolutely are going to have to be a Shadrach, a Meshach, and a Abednego at some point in our lives, and if it's not us, it's going to be those kids that we're praying for every day. And so we need to know that we have to have the answers that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they said, We have no need to answer you in this matter. We don't have to defend God. God will defend himself. But we know this, God is able to deliver us, and that's the faith that we have. Jesus knew that God was able to deliver him, and he prayed. Let this cup pass from me, but that wasn't God's will. God's will was that he would die for us. And they know that God is able. We have faith that he is able to deliver us, but he's going to deliver us either out of the fire, through the fire, or in the fire. And he is sovereign, and we just need to realize that he will make that decision. And that's why they say, but if not, even if, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your God or worship the golden image. They knew the Shema. Everybody, who knows the Shema? The Shema is what every faithful Jew says in the morning and at sundown, and it's Deuteronomy 6:4-5. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And they are demonstrating that love right now, and they are the model that we need to have this faith. We need to look at this story and have this faith and this resolution, personal resolution to follow God. All right, Alice.
Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and the expression of his face was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated, and he ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, and their hats, and their own garments, and they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was urgent, the furnace overheated. The flame of the fire killed these men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound in the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He declared to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king." He answered and said, "But I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt."
Stopping there, sorry.
Oh,
I'll let you go too far. Okay. You like the stage just as much as me. I will say, this room's only big enough for 1 comedian, though. just to be clear. All right. Oh, my friend. So Zoom land, you really don't need to hear that comment. The Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and he put on his angry face. This is what this means. And he heats up the furnace 7 times hotter, and that's hyperbole, but that wouldn't have been the smart thing. You would have cranked it down, right? These guys would have instantly incinerated, and you want them to be tortured. And so it's so hot that they've got this SEAL Team 6 that's going to put them into the furnace, and they bind them up, and when the SEAL Team 6 gets so close to the bonfire, it lights them up and they die. How many of you have ever been to a bonfire? So we have, growing up, clear land, clear crops, and when you clear land, what you do is you bulldoze the trees and all the stuff up into a pile, and you have to supervise it, and can't do it during a burn ban, but then you light it and you burn it and you make it all go away. Well, when you get within about 20 feet of one of these things that are burning, your eyebrows start singeing and your face begins to burn. And so this thing is made to radiate heat. And they're bound, and all of these clothes are listed because they're highly flammable clothes. So they're bound with ropes. They're in these clothes that are just going to light them up like a Christmas tree, and they're thrown in. They can't do anything other than just fall down. Again, SEAL Team 6 dies, and God, you question, as they're being thrown in, did they believe that God was going to deliver them? They said, but if, as if they didn't really know, but they still had the personal resolve to be thrown into the furnace. They took it all the way to the end. I wonder, as I go to Iraq occasionally, and I'll go up into the mountains, and it's a little bit rough and tumble, I make sure I have a weapon, because our guards that are with us, the first thing they're going to do if we were attacked is they're gone. They don't care about me. Yeah, that's like, yeah, I'm going to go see my family, good luck. And so, but I question, in a majority Muslim nation, if I had a gun to my head and they said deny Christ, would I have the wherewithal to have the personal resolve to say, no, I believe in Jesus Christ? And I don't know if any of y'all have ever been placed in that position, but that is the lesson here. We have to be willing to be thrown into the fire for Jesus. It's not a salvation thing. It is an obedience and a love thing that we have for God. So let's go to God's deliverance.
Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He declared to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king." And he answered and said, "But I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the door of the burning fiery furnace. He declared, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, the servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire, and the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over the bodies of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, and the smell of fire had not come upon them. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and set aside the king's command, and yielded up their bodies rather than serve the worship of any god except their own God. Therefore, I make a decree. Any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their house laid in ruins, for there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.
Cast 3 in, and all of a sudden they see 4, and the 4th is like the son of the gods. The King James Version says like the son of God. Let's go to slide 15. So he would have seen something like this and distinguished one of these guys as something that looked like the son of gods. There is a very real possibility that this is a pre-incarnate Jesus Christ, a Christophany. I don't know. It's not that important. What is important is that God sent an angel of some sort to deliver them. And it was for a message. It was the favor that he was showing them because of their faith. Again, that's not always the case, that we're delivered from the fire. Then Nebuchadnezzar comes to the door, verse 26, of the fiery furnace, and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God." Now he knows 2 things. He knows, number 1, they are servants of this God. They are willing to be thrown into the fire because of this God, and they know that he knows this is the Most High God. They are recognized for their faithfulness. I'm a little bit like a woman in only one regard, and that is that I like to have my hair cut like twice a week. And my barber's name is Roy Rogers. And I go not twice a week, every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, twice a week that's excessive. Carolyn would be looking at me like, "You've got something for Roy, don't you?" So, no, every 2 weeks I go to get my hair cut, and by the way, that's where I get all of my political views. They're way to the right of the Fox News crowd. It's wonderful. And so, what was that? Just no. He does have a picture of Roy Rogers and Trigger in the barbershop. So it's a proper barber with a pole and all that. And so this guy that I hadn't seen for years, our sons were friends in school, comes in and talking about numerous things, and he said, you know, I listened to 3 or 4 of your podcasts, when he was referring to our class YouTube, and I'm not for sure how he got it. And he said, I found it very deep and meaningful, and that is a side of Russell Freeman that I didn't know existed. And it was like, oh, that's just can you just leave the last part off? Just say it's deep and meaningful, because, you know, we should want people to know that we are servants of the Most High God by everything that we do. And the fact that that was a side of me that he had no idea existed means that I haven't displayed that I am going to be a servant of the Most High God. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego know that they serve, or Nebuchadnezzar knows that they serve, they have the reputation, and that the fire had not had any impact on them. Y'all know that I had nicotine problems for years and years and years. And I had I had committed to Carolyn to quit when we got married, and I quit until the honeymoon was over. She said that wasn't part of the deal, and I decided to break it by smoking cigars. And so I built a cabana, and I would smoke like 2 or 3 number 1 Dominican cigars every night out at the cabana. And yes, and I'd get it. I needed the nicotine, so I went fast. And I would come in, and Carolyn would say, please go take a shower, because I just reeked of smoke. When these guys are in the fiery furnace, they don't smell of anything. Their clothes are totally untouched, no smell, no singe. The only thing that's burned is the rope. And they convince Nebuchadnezzar, based on all of this. Nebuchadnezzar in verse 28 says, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And he makes a decree that any people, nation, language that speaks anything about the God of Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego shall be torn from limb to limb and their houses laid to ruin. That's not the best evangelical approach. Let me just say, it's not exactly what we need to do. But he knew that there was no other God, not Nebu, not Marduk, not Bel, not any of the gods of the Babylonians from the stars. And from then, the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. So God is the deliverer. Again, it's not always delivering us from the fire. Sometimes it's through it, sometimes it's in it. Brett, can you play the song?
They say sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. And right now I'm losing bad. I've stood on this stage night after night, reminding the broken it'll be alright. But right now, oh right now I just can't. It's easy to sing when there's nothing to bring me down. But what will I say when I'm held to the flame like I am right now? I know you're able and I know you can save through the fire with your mighty hand. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. They say it only takes a little faith to move a mountain. Well, good thing, a little faith is all I have right now. God, when you choose to leave mountains unmovable, oh, give me the strength to be able to sing. It is well with my soul. I know you're able and I know you can save through the fire what may, 'cause I know you're able. I know you can. I know you're able, and I know you can. See through the fire with your mighty hand. But even if you don't, my hope is in you alone. I know the sorrow, I know the hurt would all go away if you just say the word. But even if you don't, my hope is in you alone. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul.
All right. Thank you, Russell. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to ask Dave to close us out as we head to Christmas Day, and hope everybody has a great week and is able to celebrate and enjoy. We all have a cousin Eddie, so remember little grace and a little patience as well, right? Okay. Nope. You, Dave. That's why I was looking at you. Yeah. Thank you.